Hello there, this is Alan, and I'm back with another movie review. And today I'm going to be paying tribute to a very special science fiction film that goes all the way back to 1927. We're talking 88 years ago, baby! At least 88 years ago at the time that I'm shooting this video. We're talking about the movie that is the granddaddy of all sci-fi pictures, ladies and gentlemen, Metropolis, the silent film sci-fi classic by director Fritz Lang. Metropolis, ladies and gentlemen, is the granddaddy of all sci-fi movies. There's no question about it. I mean, it wasn't the very first sci-fi film ever made. I mean, gee, if you really want to go back in time, there was that cute little campy film short called A Trip to the Moon, which I think was made in 1906. Was that the first sci-fi film ever made? So Metropolis wasn't the very first sci-fi film, but it is, without a shadow of a doubt, the landmark, benchmark sci-fi film that all other sci-fi films owe a great gratitude to. Without Metropolis, there would have been no Forbidden Planet. Without Metropolis, there wouldn't have been 2001: A Space Odyssey. Without Metropolis, there wouldn't have been Star Wars. Without Metropolis, there wouldn't have been Blade Runner. Without Metropolis, there wouldn't have been, well, okay, I'll say it, Avatar. Yeah, I mean, all of these sci-fi films owe a great debt to Metropolis and what Fritz Lang achieved with this film. I've always been a big fan of Metropolis. It is without a shadow of a doubt my favorite silent film of all time, and I certainly acknowledge it as one of the very best sci-fi films ever made. Even though it's a very unique sci-fi film in the sense that it's not science fiction as in they go into outer space. You know, they don't go into outer space in Metropolis. There's no space battles, there's no laser gun fire. It's not that kind of sci-fi film, but it's definitely sci-fi. It takes place in a futuristic society. It's actually set in the year 2026. There's a robot, a classic movie robot involved that can change shape and take on the features of any living human being. There's great special effects in this film. I mean, my God, these are special effects that were done 88 freaking years ago, man. And these visual effects still are fantastic. They still stand the test of time. So it's definitely a sci-fi film, but I mean, I'm just saying they just don't go into outer space. But it takes place in a futuristic society, and it involves a robot and technology. So in that regards, Metropolis definitely qualifies as a sci-fi film. My very first copy of Metropolis, I bought it on video cassette in 1988, and I've been a big, huge fan of this movie ever since. Actually, my introduction to Metropolis, now that I think about it, was that it was shown in film class. I was in junior college at the time, and we got to watch the short 90-minute version of Metropolis for film class. And I remember being blown away by the film, even though we all know now that the 90-minute version of Metropolis is not the complete Metropolis. But nonetheless, I watched the 90-minute version of the film, totally blown away by it, and then of course I went out and bought a video cassette copy of it, a very, very cheap video cassette copy. In fact, I'll show it to you right here. Here you go, folks. This is my old VHS copy of Metropolis. I believe I bought this in the late 80s, and this is indeed the 90-minute version of Metropolis, and yeah, I still got the tape. Still got it right there. But, you know, Metropolis has sadly been horribly sliced and diced over the years. When the movie originally came out, it was about 2.5 hours long. A little over 2.5 hours long, in fact. But when it was released in America, I guess the American film distribution people thought that the film was simply way too long, and that maybe it was a little too avant-garde at its running length of 2.5 hours, and they figured, you know, audiences in America aren't going to sit for a 2.5 hour film with all this arty, expressionistic stuff going on. I mean, it's a German film, and the Germans are very well known for expressionistic stuff and, you know, art kind of stuff. I mean, very, very German. Yeah, very German. It's a very German movie. It's a brilliant German movie. Let me maybe make that clear. But I mean, you know, very art housey kind of stuff. But yeah, the American distribution people just didn't think that American audiences would sit for 2.5 hours through this art house kind of movie. So they slashed the movie down. I mean, slashed it down to 90 minutes. And since then, the original print, the original full-length print of Metropolis, I mean, it had been just totally sliced and diced, and eventually it got lost. And so for many years, the short, sliced and diced 90-minute version of Metropolis, the version that I bought here on this old cassette, was the only version of Metropolis that existed, really, which is such a shame. I mean, the 90-minute version of the film, if you watch the 90-minute version, I mean, it's fine, it's entertaining, but it's not the whole Metropolis. You're losing a whole frigging hour of footage, a whole hours of footage. And by the way, by chopping the movie down to 90 minutes, they also changed the story somewhat. But anyway, in 2002, they were able to locate some more scattered prints of Metropolis that had extra footage, and they were able to put back into the movie about another half hour's worth of footage, and that gave us this version of Metropolis, which you see here, that was released in 2002, I think, on DVD. And this version of Metropolis clocks in at about a little over 2 hours. And the extra footage is great. Great. It's definitely a better movie for it with the extra half-hour footage. But it's still not the complete Metropolis. This version of Metropolis is still missing about a half hour's worth of footage. And this is definitely worth having on DVD, this 2-hour version of Metropolis, but it's still not the complete Metropolis. And many people thought that, well, I guess this is the most complete version of Metropolis we're ever going to get. But, wouldn't you know it, in 2008, a miracle happened where a nearly complete print of Metropolis was found in a film vault in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And it's still not the complete version of Metropolis. There's still about 5 minutes worth of footage that's missing, or rather, there was like 5 minutes worth of footage on this print that was so badly damaged it couldn't be salvaged. But nonetheless, this print was, for all intents and purposes, the complete or nearly complete version of Metropolis. And that's this version right here, the complete Metropolis. Well, they call it the complete Metropolis, but actually a more accurate title would be the nearly complete Metropolis. It's still missing about 5 minutes worth of footage, and that 5 minutes worth of footage may indeed be gone for good. But for all intents and purposes, this is the as complete version of Metropolis as it can possibly be. This version clocks in at 148 minutes, so it's only missing about 5 minutes worth of footage. But thanks to that miracle 16mm print of Metropolis found in Buenos Aires, this is probably the most complete version of Metropolis we will ever get. And God bless it. God bless it. I mean, wow, what a treat to see Metropolis restored damn near to its original full-length glory. Wonderful stuff. Geez, I haven't even gotten into the story about Metropolis. Yeah, Metropolis is a most unique film. Like I said, it is a science fiction movie, but it's not science fiction in the sense of outer space and space battles and laser guns. It all takes place on Earth. It's just that it takes place in a futuristic society. And basically, it's the story, I have to admit, is kind of on the cheeseball side. I mean, it's very cheeseball, you know, with the script and the acting. You have to remember this is a silent movie, okay? A silent movie made all the way back in 1927, and so, you know, the actors' expressions on their faces and I mean, very, very over-the-top expressionistic acting and facial expressions and all of that. But, you know, you just have to accept it, okay? That this is how they made movies back in 1927, especially silent movies. Because these movies were silent with only an orchestral score to accompany it, the actors had to go over the top and really go overboard with their facial expressions and their movements to convey what the audience cannot hear with their ears. That was basically just filmmaking par for the course back in the 1920s. So even though when you look at Metropolis or any silent film that was made way back when in the 1920s or thereabouts, yeah, it's cheesy and you know, kind of cornball, but you know, you gotta forgive them. Like I said, the story's a little bit cheeseball, but again, it's basically a power struggle between this businessman, this very wealthy businessman who practically runs the entire city of Metropolis, and the workers who work down below. All the wealthy people live high atop, the planet in skyscraper buildings that go like all the way up into the sky, really, really high up into the sky, whereas the workers who actually have to keep the machines going, they're poor, they live all the way deep down in the depths of the city, and they have to run the machinery. They work like 10-hour shifts with like no lunch break. I mean, or at least if they get a lunch break, we don't see it. But I mean, they are really, really suffering as they just, they have to keep the machinery that runs the city going. And basically what we see here in the film, to make a long story short, is a power struggle between this businessman named, I guess, Friederson. Let me see. Let me look it up on my trusty pad here. Yeah, Friederson. That's the name of the wealthy businessman, and the power struggle between Friederson and the workers who run the city down below in the depths. And Friederson has a young son named Frieder, and Frieder, he questions his existence in living in luxury and wealth when he comes across a beautiful woman who visits, I guess, from down below in the depths. She visits with a group of children, and her name is Maria, and she comes up to briefly visit the wealthy people, and of course Frieder sees Maria, and instantly he falls in love with her, and he wants to see her again, and so he basically follows her down into the depths of the city and sees how the factory workers are treated so horribly, and Frieder starts to feel bad about his existence, living in wealth and luxury, and he wants to get to know the people who live down in the depths of the city. That's more or less the plot, I guess, of Metropolis. There's also a subplot going on with a worker that Frieder befriends, whose name is Georgie. He also goes by the number of 11811. He's one of the workers down in the factories, and Frieder befriends him, and he actually changes places with Georgie in the factory, so Georgie can finally be free for a while and enjoy freedom for a while. And there's also a plot involving a mad scientist. That's another important part of the plot of Metropolis. There's a mad scientist named Rotwang, who it turns out he and Friederson were in love with the same woman. Her name was Helm, which I believe is short for Helen. And but Rotwang loved this woman so much he built a gigantic statue of her, a gigantic bust statue of her head in her honor. But it turned out that he and Friederson were both in love with her. So there's that thing going on, and basically Friederson comes to realize that the workers down below are, I guess he realizes they're starting to form a revolt against him, and so he wants to do some further investigation. He also discovers that the beautiful woman Maria is preaching to them, preaching to the workers, and trying to keep their spirits up, even though they work the most horrible of factory jobs. But she's trying to keep their spirits up and telling them, don't you worry, a mediator will come soon to help us and help you, and he will come. And I guess ultimately Frieder assumes the role of mediator. Because again, the whole cheesy kind of story hanging over Metropolis is this notion that, that the hand and the mind need a mediator in order to meet, and that mediator is the heart. So yeah, I admit, that the basic, cut right down to the bone plot of Metropolis, yeah, okay, it's kind of cornball, it's kind of cheesy, but like I said, again, folks, this is a silent film made in 1927, so I'm going to be very forgiving that again, this is just how they made movies in the 1920s, so I'm not going to hold it against them if the story is kind of cheesy. What I love about Metropolis is just the whole imagination behind it, and again, the visuals. The visuals for 1927 are phenomenal in this movie. Absolutely phenomenal. Fritz Lang, I mean, God bless him, what a visionary director he was, and the vision he has for this film, this whole well, I mean, there's a reason why the film's called Metropolis. I mean, this whole gigantic metropolis city where the buildings are just like total skyscrapers that go practically up to the sky, like Towers of Babel, which, by the way, also plays a part in this movie. By the way, Babel definitely comes up in this film. You know, the metaphors abound all over in Metropolis. Tons of metaphors. But anyway, just the whole look of the film, and again, the visual effects. Obviously, there was no CGI back then. Hell no. No CGI. They didn't even have matte paintings. They did have models. But basically the special effects that were done for this film was done with a combination of animation. There's definitely animation stuff going on in this film for the visuals. Animation, models, mirror effects. There were some mirror effects that were used to create some of the shots in this film. There was also some camera trickery that was used. I love how Fritz Lang uses his camera, how the camera will follow Maria as she's being chased in the caverns by Rotwang, and you know the camera is following her like, you know, shaky cam documentary style, but it looks great. There's a fantastic action scene towards the end when the underground city is being destroyed and the water pipes burst. And, you know, the water is just totally flooding the city. I mean, it's a magnificent scene. And again, the way the camera is moving, there's like an explosion that happens at one point in the movie, and Maria and Frieder fall, and it's like the camera is like on some kind of swing. It's like it swings towards them and then it swings back. But I mean, the production values on Metropolis are sensational. This was a movie that took over a year to shoot. Over a year, and according to Wikipedia, it was a very, very difficult trying shoot for all the cast members, because Fritz Lang was a very, very demanding director, and he really put the cast through the paces. And like I said, it took them over a year to shoot this thing. But you know, when you see the finished product, you can see quite clearly all the love and care that went into the making of this film. And again, I just love Fritz Lang's vision for this movie. And again, the visual effects, I mean, again, the animation, the models, you know, mirror effects and things like that is just amazing to see. And then of course, we have to give special notice to the robot, yeah, or as she's referred to in this film, the man machine. Obviously, the lovely Brigitte Helm, who plays Maria, she got to wear the robot suit. I mean, this is right there. This is probably the first classic movie robot in the history of cinema. The man machine robot played by Brigitte Helm in Metropolis. I mean, she's a legendary robot. She is, and I think she's the first legendary robot of cinema, right there. And the scene where the robot transforms into a copy of Maria, and basically you can kind of see a still from that right here on the complete Metropolis cover. Again, I mean, those rings, those are animated. And again, the design of the robot and the flashing lights, and also editing. Fritz Lang uses wonderful editing tricks all throughout this movie. And it's just astonishing stuff to see. It really, really is. The visuals are phenomenal in this movie. And again, just the whole art direction and the way Fritz Lang shoots it. The story, even though it's cheeseball, I mean, I enjoy it. I mean, I enjoyed the love story that unfolds between Maria and Frieder. Frieder, played by Gustav Frohlich, who has like this moppy kind of hair, and you know his facial expressions, and father, you know, Maria. You know, again, his acting's over the top, but then again, everybody's acting in this movie is over the top. But I mean, he certainly paints. He certainly has a very classic silent film movie star face. I'll give him that. And again, that moppish kind of hair of his, and that perfectly chiseled German face of his. You know, it's a good performance. I mean, I think he definitely makes a good Frieder. Another thing I noticed about Gustav Frohlich in this film is that he's very, very physical. I mean, especially towards the end of the film when the city is totally being destroyed. You know, he's got do all kinds of climbing and running around and all of that. So, you know, he's got to be the hero in this movie, especially when he finally has to take on the evil scientist Rotwang at the end. So very good performance from Gustav Frohlich. Of course, what needs to be said about the lovely Brigitte Helm? What a face. What a beautiful face that woman has. But now, about her acting, yeah, she's great in this. I mean, this was her debut movie, Metropolis. Brigitte Helm hadn't done a film before. And again, she's very, very good and very, very memorable as Maria. Again, yes, her acting's over the top. You know, when she's scared and all that. But again, everybody's acting in this film is over the top, so, you know, deal with it. But for what she has to play here, I mean, she's the heroine in this film, and again, she's memorable. She's absolutely memorable, and she's beautiful, and again, especially when we get towards the end of the film, when the city's being destroyed, and it's up to Maria to save the children from the city who have been left behind, and there's that classic scene where she has to sound the alarm in the city. She has to ring this gigantic bell, and she has to pull these heavy levers, like, you know, to get the bell to ring, and that's a powerful moment. But I mean, she's such a charming heroine, and you really do root for her and you care for her, and again, beautiful. I mean, that face. I mean, Brigitte Helm was born to be a movie star. She really, really was. She had a lovely, lovely face, and again, very good acting performance. And she's definitely a heroine that you can definitely get behind. So she's great. You got other people here like let's see, Alfred Abel as John Friederson, the businessman. I mean, he's basically a prick towards his son. Frieder, not the greatest of fathers, but, you know, he finally comes to his senses by the end. That's a good performance. Rudolf Klein Rogue as Rotwang, the evil scientist who creates the robot. Yeah, he's a very good presence. I mean, he's got like evil eyes, and he's got, you know, evil scientist hair, and he's like, you know, over his facial expressions. I mean, you don't forget the face of Rotwang in this movie. So again, that's credit to the actor Rudolf Klein Rogue. Let's see, Fritz Rasp, a very, very tall German actor who plays the Thin Man. He basically acts as Friederson's spy, who's investigating Maria and Frieder, and he also follows around the worker Georgie, also known as 11811, and he follows him around for a while. And what's so great about the complete version of Metropolis is that we have a lot more footage with the Thin Man, because in the 90-minute version of Metropolis, the Thin Man, I didn't know that he was Friederson's spy. He came across more like Friederson's butler, who just shows up for a few scenes, and he appears to be the butler, but it turns out he's actually the spy working for Friederson when you watch the complete version of Metropolis. But yeah, very, very strong presence from Fritz Rasp as well. I totally love the complete version of Metropolis. Now, you'll notice when you watch the complete version of the film that the newly discovered footage that they found in Argentina that's been put in the film, the print was heavily damaged. And the folks who restored the movie to its near complete length again, I mean, they cleaned up that damaged footage, they cleaned it up as best as they could, but it still has lesser video quality than the previous footage, which looks crystal clear. I mean, you're definitely going to see lines going across the screen. It's still watchable. Don't get me wrong, it's still watchable, and that's the important thing, is that extra footage that they found in Argentina is definitely watchable, but you will notice that it's of lesser quality than the previous footage that had already been there, that had already been recovered. So you'll notice the difference, believe me, when you watch the complete version of Metropolis. I just get used to it after a while, you know? I'm just glad that we can finally watch the footage, that we can finally see Metropolis almost complete as Fritz Lang originally intended it. This is a wonderful movie. Like I said, it is what it is, folks. It's a silent film. It's from 1927, and yes, everybody's acting in it is corny and over the top, but get used to it, okay? It was made in 1927, so be forgiving. The visual effects are phenomenal for the time that they were made. They still blow my mind when I watch it. I mean, like I said, when the robot turns into when the robot turns into a copy of Maria, and you see those rings and the lights and the flashing lights and the mirror effects, the model shots, The production designs, the set designs in this film are fantastic. I mean, there's this elevator that's like, it appears to be like on an endless loop. It doesn't stop. It's like on a conveyor belt, an elevator on a conveyor belt. You got to see it to believe it. The look of the factory, the giant machines, the metal parts that you see all over the place. The cast of thousands, it seems, that Fritz Lang had to direct in this film. I don't know how he did it. I really, truly don't know how he did it. But all I know is that this is a phenomenal movie. It is, without question, my favorite silent film, no doubt about it. And it's a landmark sci-fi film. I mean, you know for sure that Fritz Lang definitely influenced people like George Lucas and Spielberg and all the other filmmakers who made their sci-fi films. It all points towards Metropolis. It really does. This movie right here, folks, this is the granddaddy movie of sci-fi films. Without Metropolis, we wouldn't have had any of the other movies. With any of the other classics like Forbidden Planet, 2001, Star Wars, and all the others. It all starts right here with Metropolis. If it hadn't been for Fritz Lang, George Lucas wouldn't have had a job, or Steven Spielberg, or any of those other guys. It starts with Fritz Lang. The sci-fi film genre really, truly begins right here with this most magnificent classic film, Metropolis. It really, really does. And that's my review of Metropolis. So thank you very much for watching. This is Alan, and I'll be back next time with another movie review. And don't forget to subscribe down below too. And I'll see you later.